بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق أجمعين محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. We continue today the subject of fiqh, and we are still with Taharat, the purifying, and issue we have reached issue 73, Taharat or Istibra to do. Istibra is a recommended procedure, not obligatory, to be done after voiding, and the idea is to clean remainings of the urine in the urethra, because the urethra is long and some urine might remain there. Somebody when stand, sometimes a drop of urine might come out and will spoil his dress or will nullify his wudu. That is why it is mentioned that Istibra is recommended to be done, not obligatory, but recommended to be done. If Istibra was not done and a drop of liquid comes out, if somebody doesn't know, is it a urine or it is a discharge, not urine, I mean whether it is Najis or Tahir, because he has not done Istibra, then he should take it as Najis. But if Istibra was done and a drop comes out and he is not sure that the drop is a discharge or urine, he will take it as Tahir, because with Istibra he is supposed to clean the urethra and then no drop of urine is usually coming out, and if he is not sure then it is Tahir. So that is the benefit of Istibra which is done. It is mentioned here in these issues some details, we will go through them. Issue 73, Istibra is a recommended act for men after urinating. Its object is to ensure that no more urine is left in the urethra. There are certain ways of performing Istibra, and the best of them is that after the passing of urine, if the bottom also becomes najis, it is made tahir first. Thereafter, the part between the bottom and the root should be pressed thrice with the middle finger of the left hand. Then the thumb is placed with the middle finger and then squeezed and then jerked 3 times. That procedure is being mentioned here for cleaning through the process of Istibra, and that has to be done after urination as a recommended subject, not obligatory. But the benefit he mentioned at the issue 74, the moisture which is discharged by man during wooing and courtship is called madi, and it is tahir, and so is the liquid which is seen after ejaculation, it is called wadi. Similarly, the liquid which is at times comes out after urine is called wadi and is tahir. These are 3 types of discharge which comes and is regarded as tahir. With one condition, he said, if urine has not reached it. If a person performs Istibra after urinating and then discharges liquid, doubting whether it is urine or one of the above mentioned 3 liquids, that liquid is tahir. Tahir because he has performed Istibra. Well, he said there is no Istibra for women, and little more details are mentioned there. We discuss now a new subject, and that is about the najis things. And we mentioned there are 2 terms, najis and mutanajjis. It's good to learn about them. Najis is the what is called original impurity, impure things originally. And mutanajjis is the contaminated object by that original impurity. For example, urine or blood is original impurity, najis. So it can't be tahar. Even if I wash the blood, if it is dry and wash it, it will not be pure, because still it is a blood until it is removed completely. But the body which is contaminated by blood, for example, if the blood goes and is washed one time or two times, the details are going to come, then it will be tahir. So the word najis usually translated as original impurity or impure agents or impure things. That is the translation of najis. And mutanajjis are the parts of contaminated things like the body or the utensils of the kitchen or the furniture or the floor or the carpet. Those all are contaminated with original impurity. What are the najis things? He said in issue 84, the following 10 things are essentially najis. He used the word essentially. Najis means najis by themselves, not by contamination. Urine, and second feces, third semen, 4 dead body, 5 blood, 6 dog, 7 pig, 8 kafir, 9 alcoholic liquors, and 10 the sweat of an animal who persistently eats najasat, eats najis things. We will come to details of each one of them, and he starts with issue 85. Urine and feces, because the issues are related, so he mixed them both. Is urine and feces of every human being and every animal is najis, or there are some details? He mentions here there are details. For the human beings, yes, urine and feces is najis, even for a newborn baby, because some say the urine of the baby is tahir. That is a mistake, is not right. Let us read the issue 85. Urine and feces of the following living beings are najis: human beings, 2 animals whose meat is haram to eat and whose blood gushes out forcefully when its large vein, jugular vein, is slit. Animals whose meat is haram, well, animals like, let us say, the chicken or sheep is halal to eat, so naturally its urine and feces is tahir, is not najis. Also the donkey and horse and camel is allowed to eat their meat if they are slaughtered, though for donkey is not recommended, but anyhow it is not haram. And so that is, again, the issue is tahir. But for animal like mouse, for example, or cat, dog, of course, all its parts are najis, but mouse and cat, their meat is haram to eat, so it is najis. The same thing for animals in jungle, the wolf and other animals, their urine and feces is najis. Practical problem we have is usually with the mouse at homes. You know, if one find remnants of the feces of the mouse, then it is najis, has to be. And the same thing for the cat. Well, in many houses cat is there, then the feces and urine of the cat is najis because their meat is haram. Now he put another condition. He said not animals only their meat is haram to eat, but their blood will gush at time of slaughtering. This is a term used to differentiate between 2 types of animals. Some animals like mosquito, for example, like the crocodile, like the fish. If you slaughter the fish, the blood will not gush out. If you slaughter the butterfly or the fly, for example, the blood will not gush out. So they said their blood is not that type which gush out. The blood which gush out is, well, usually for bigger animals like mouse. If you slaughter it, naturally its blood will gush. So he mentioned specifically those animals where their blood will gush when they are slaughtered, and if eating their meat is haram, then their urine and feces is regarded to be najis. And we said practical examples, I like mouse and cat. When you slaughter them, their blood will gush out. In Arabic you say, "Du nafsin sa'ila," and the blood will gush. But if, like fish, for example, even if it is that type of fish in which we are not allowed to eat, so their meat is haram, but because fish is not such type of animal that their blood will gush out, so its urine and feces is not najis, So he put a condition first of a human being, and he said human being all. As I said, some of the people, they are under impression that the newborn child, they said he is not eating meat and food, now he is only eating milk, so his urine is tahir. No, that is not true. Even for a newborn child, his urine is najis, human being in general. So that is the first issue on regarding urine and feces. The details are little more on the same issue, 85. It said the excretion of those animals who are haram to eat, but its blood does not gush forth forcefully when killed, like haram fish is tahir. This is, we explained. Similarly, droppings of mosquito and the flies are tahir, they are not najis. Of course, the urine of an animal whose meat is haram should be avoided as per obligatory precaution, even if its blood does not gush forth when killed. Here he differentiates between urine and feces. He said urine of animals in which their meat is haram, but their blood will not gush when they are slaughtered, as obligatory precaution is to be avoided. Well, obligatory precaution, because there are certain traditions which shows that the discussion is about the feces, not urine, of those animals in which they have no blood to gush at time of slaughtering. But urine is not discussed. So he said urine maybe separate from that. That is why, according to Ayatullah Al-Sistani, he said this issue, according to obligatory precaution, the urine is najis, though the feces is tahir. The dropping is tahir, but the urine is najis, according to Ayatullah Al-Sistani. Some ulama said no, both of them, urine and stool, is the same thing. If it is tahir, then it is tahir. In the book I have, he put a point like a hand on this issue, and that shows that Ayatullah Sistani differs in this issue with Ayatullah Khou'i. So wherever he put this sign, he said that there are views which Ayatullah Sistani differs with Ayatullah Sayyid Abul Qasim al-Khou'i, rahmatullahi alayhi. Okay, we come to issue 86. He said the urine and droppings of those birds which are haram to eat is tahir, but it is better to avoid them. Now we discussed urine and stool of animals on land or on sea. What is the issue? But what about the birds? Is it the same thing? Because some animals it's haram to eat their meat, and some is halal. Some birds, I mean. Well, details will come at the subject of food later on, but the usual birds where they are flying by moving the wings, it is halal to eat their meat. And those birds in which they usually extend their wings more than flexing their wing, then their meat is haram. I mean, they will give that details which one is halal, which one is haram. But here we said about the birds, even those types of birds in which it is haram to eat their meat, but their urine and droppings are tahir. So they differ from animals on earth. Their droppings is tahir. Issue 87, the urine and excretion of an animal who subsists on najasat, and of a goat who was nursed by a pig, and of a quadruped who has been defiled by a human being are najis. He mentioned this point here about animal eating najis. See, Islam cares a lot about clean meat to eat, purified meat, good meat, healthy meat. Now, if an animal, we keep the animal on certain place where animal eat only from najis things, not the tahir things. Usually, if you put a chicken, for example, and you give wheat or barley or something to the chicken to eat, that is the usual food, which is tahir. But if I put the chicken in a place in which all the food eaten by the chicken is najis, and I keep it for some time, then the meat of that chicken will be najis, will not be tahir. The same thing if I keep a goat on certain place and the food given to that goat is najis, then the meat of that animal will be najis, not allowed to eat. Though usually halal meat, but that particular animal, because that animal was living on a najis thing, become najis. Well, this is a practical problem nowadays, because the food they give to animals, usually they mix with it blood of other animals, intestine of other animals, and sometimes the feces of other animals. They mix it and they say this is a good food for others. Now, if it is feces of such animals which is haram, like pig or other, naturally the food become najis even if it's given. If you give the meat of the, let us say, intestine, usually the animals are not slaughtered in Islamic way, so their meat is najis and their intestine are najis. So they give the intestine, they mince it and then mix it with the food of chickens or food of the cow or food of other animals. So that animals, when they eat on that najis food, their meat will be najis. You cannot eat them. And scientifically nowadays, certain diseases which are discovered about the cow and getting madness of the cows. It is proved that those cows which eat meat of other animals, like intestine or other things, they got this disease. So this disease is coming through that process. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows all the details, and they said you have to eat a clean meat, and the animal you are eating also should be fed a tahir food, not a najis food. And he gave example of a goat. If the, let us say, mother of the goat died and there is a pig, and take milk of the pig as a food, that goat will be, its meat will be najis, because its food is milk of a pig. And also an animal which is as mentioned here is defiled by a human being, that should be slaughtered and thrown out, or some said should be burned. Actually, the meat will not be halal in that case. Well, again, nowadays scientifically they find that one of the causes for the virus which causes AIDS disease are such type of animals. So you say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says such animals, their meat is haram, and in some places mentioned that when they are slaughtered, their body should be burned and should not remain, not buried like this, because as you know, the effect of virus, bacteria, it may flourish. Allah knows why. I mean, science discovered now maybe one virus, two types of virus, 5 viruses, but God knows there are maybe 1,000 reasons that has not been discovered yet. Almighty God knows, I mean, that is the greatness and the beauty of Islam. It deals with all details of the human life. Even to small details, they said there is a law and rules and regulation. That this is halal, that is haram. And let science after 1,000 years, 2,000 years, 5,000 years discover the reasons and philosophy why that is haram and this is halal. So these are some of the issues mentioned here. We come to issue 88. 88 about semen. Said the semen of a human being and every animal whose blood gushes when its large vein, jugular vein, is cut is najis. So the semen of a human being is najis. While in some the Muslim sects they said it is tahir, but you have to avoid it. But actually, according to Ahlul Bayt, Salamullahi alayhim, it is najis, not tahir, and has to be avoided. If it drop on the cloth, underwear, or cloth of the person, then that cloth has to be washed. Is not tahir. In some of the Sunni sects, they said no, if it is dry, then it is okay. But actually, according to Fiqh of Ahlul Bayt, no, it is najis and has to be washed completely and to be cleaned. So he said the semen of the human being and also of the animals. Again, he mentioned what type of animals whose blood will gush at time of slaughtering. So all that, their semen is najis. We come to issue 89, dead body. The dead body of a human being is najis. Similarly, the dead body of any animal whose blood gushes forth with force is najis, irrespective of whether it dies a natural death or is killed in a manner other than that prescribed by Islam. As the blood of a fish does not gush forth, its dead body is tahir even if it dies in water. He said dead body of a human being is najis. So if somebody dies, his body, if you touch and if the hand is wet, then your hand is najis, contaminated. You have to wash it. And that dead body of the human being is najis before they do the ceremonial bathing, the ghusl al-mayyit. But if the dead body is been bathed, according to Islam, the details of how to bath the dead body is going to be mentioned in the future. After bathing the dead body become tahir for the human being. Now for the animals, he said the animals, if they die natural death, their dead body is najis, of course. But if they are slaughtered, again in non-Islamic way slaughtered, still their dead body will be regarded as najis, unless they are slaughtered in Islamic way. So that is also regarded as najis. And also he mentioned here about the fish, because the fish, its blood does not gush when it is slaughtered, so its dead body is not najis. The fish in order to be tahir has to be taken alive from the water. But if it dies in the water, it is not allowed to eat that fish. That fish is haram to eat. It is, the type of the fish is halal fish, but if it die in water, before you take it out, its meat is haram. Or it has to be taken out, or has to be, let us say, put in the net and die in the net, or be taken out. That detail is going to come. But what I mean, if a fish dies in the sea, in the river, that fish, because its blood is not gushing, is not najis, though you are not allowed to eat its meat, but it is not regarded as najis. So the najis thing is for animals whose blood will gush, not for fish, because it does not have blood to gush out. Issue 90, those parts of a dead body which do not contain life, like wool, hair, teeth, nails, bones, and horns, are tahir. Now, question comes, all parts of the dead animal become najis, as we said, not slaughtered in Islamic way. Animals die. All its parts are najis, or some parts are tahir. He said, no, not all parts. Parts like meat, like fat, like skin, they are najis. But parts which has no life, the word here has no life. What does mean no life? Like they say the corn has no life. The nails are dead, has no life. And he included the bones also, because the bone by itself said, according here, that it has no life. The wool and so on. So these are parts of the dead body, but it is tahir, it is not najis. Issue 91, if a flesh or any other part which contains life is cut off from the body of a living human being or a living animal whose blood gushes forth, it will be najis. Now, if an operation is done in a surgery and part of the meat, a hand of the patient has certain infection or leg, and they cut that leg or that hand, or part of the flesh is taken out, is that flesh is tahir or najis? Said is najis, even if it is taken from a human being who is alive, but because that part is separated and that part will be dead part, so it is regarded as najis. So what I mean, the parts of the human being which is taken in operation, in surgery, and taken out, it is regarded as najis, not as tahir. No. Issue 92, small pieces of skin which peel off from the lips or other parts of the body are tahir. Again, he said parts which of the body which is taken from the living human being, if it is taken in surgery or any way out, is najis. So the question comes, what about some skin comes out from the lips? Usually when the lips are dry, some of the skin will come out, or sometimes little skin will peel off from the body. Is that scalps which are coming out, this is regarded as najis? He said no, this type is not what is meant. If we take a piece of meat or intestine is cut, or some of the limbs are cut, we discuss about that. But little skin, if it is coming out, that is not najis, is tahir. Issue 93, an egg from the body of a dead hen is tahir, but its exterior must be washed. Now, if a chicken dies and there is an egg inside, are we allowed to consume that egg? He said yes, the egg is tahir, but the outside of the egg is najis because contaminated with the intestine of the hen. So if we wash it, the hard part or outside part, if we wash it, then it becomes tahir, then inside the egg is not haram to eat, is halal and is tahir to eat. Issue 94, if a lamb or a kid dies before it is able to graze, the rennet found in its stomach is tahir, but its exterior should be washed with water. Now, the rennet here in Arabic said anfiha. Anfiha is used to make the milk as a cheese, is the cheesing process. They use rennet. And that part of the dead animal is tahir. Like we said, some parts of the dead animal which has no life are tahir. We said like the bone, like the nail, like the hair. The rennet, that part of the intestine, which is the rennet type, that is tahir itself, by itself, though the animal is dead. But because it is contaminated with the intestine, or there is a blood or other thing around it, so it becomes contaminated najis, mutanajis, and has to be washed from outside. Otherwise itself is regarded as tahir. So what I mean, the question comes, if we use the cheese and he said they have used cow rennet, is it allowed to eat? If it is pig rennet, all parts of pig are najis, so it is najis, and that cheese is also najis, we cannot use. But if it is cow, and we know the cow is not slaughtered in Islamic way, so is it allowed? He said yes, it is allowed if we know that when they took the rennet out, they washed it with water. Well, probably in factories, naturally, when they take the rennet out of the stomach, will not use it as it is with the blood and with dirt and put it in the milk. Naturally, it is washed with water to make it clean, and then they use the enzyme in it for the process of making cheese, So he said the rennet itself is tahir, even though the animal himself is najis, that is an additional part of tahir things of the dead animal whose blood gush while slaughtering it. 95. The liquid medicines, perfumes, ghee is the oil which is used, soap and wax, polish which are imported are tahir if one is not sure of their being najis. Why he say imported? Imported from non-Muslim countries. He said certain perfumes we are using or oil we are using, and we don't know whether it is contaminated with najis things or not. So if we do not know they are contaminated with najis things, we take them as tahir, because the general rule is everything is tahir unless you know it is najis. And because we don't know whether these things are contaminated by najis object or not, then we take it as tahir. So he said from imported, he means from non-Muslim countries, because if it is made in a Muslim country, naturally the Muslims, they are aware that these things should not be contaminated with blood or urine or alcohol or other things, because they know these are najis, and they themselves wash it if by chance contamination happens. But for non-Muslims, they do not regard it as najis, so maybe their hand or the machine is contaminated and they are not caring about it. But he said because we do not know, we take it as tahir unless we know it is already contaminated or has something which is najis. Has something which is najis, like what? Like there is an animal fat in it. We know that animals are not slaughtered in Islamic way, and their fat is najis, so if they say there is animal fat in it, then it is najis. If in perfumes there is wine there, so the wine is najis, so naturally we should not use it. In a chocolate, if there is wine, for example, then it is najis. Otherwise, if there is no wine, and I don't know this chocolate when they made it in the factory was contaminated with najasat or not, we said no, the chocolate itself is tahir, but unless it has something else najis in it. So they said those who are important, and if we do not know they were contaminated with najis thing, then they are taking as tahir. كل شيء لك طاهر حتى تعلم أنه قذر or najis in different wording. So everything is taken for the first instance as tahir, unless we know otherwise that it has been contaminated and it has become najis. Issue 96. Fat, meat or hide of an animal about which there is a probability that it may have been slaughtered according to the Islamic law are tahir. However, if these things are obtained from a non-Muslim or from a Muslim who himself obtained them from a non-Muslim without investigating whether the animal was slaughtered according to the Islamic law, it is haram to eat that meat and fat. But a prayer in that hide will be permissible. But if these things are obtained from Muslim market, Muslim bazaar, Muslim market, or a Muslim, and it is not known that he got them from a non-Muslim, or if it is known that he got from a non-Muslim, but there is a great probability that he has investigated about it being slaughtered according to Sharia, then eating such meat and fat is permissible. This is very common problem, and there are many possibilities. He put it in one issue, about 5-6 possibilities. He explained them in this issue. He said if we want to buy a meat, naturally we have to make sure the meat is halal meat, slaughtered in an Islamic way. Now if I go to a shop where they sell meat and I don't know it's halal or not, so what is the issue here? So he gave the details. He said if the one who sells them is Muslim, and naturally the Muslim knows that the meat which is not halal is not allowed to sell, so naturally if he slaughtered them himself, I do not need to go and investigate whether he slaughtered them in the right way. He knows the details. It is in the direction of Qibla or not in direction of Qibla, how he used the knife, and all those details are not necessary, because you say I trust him as a Muslim, and when he sell a meat and he say this meat is halal meat, then it should be halal or taken granted as halal. So that is one point. The second point, he said if the Muslim has taken it from a non-Muslim, or if the buyer is a non-Muslim, you go to a supermarket owned by a non-Muslim, or we buy it from a Muslim, but I know this meat has been purchased from a buyer who is non-Muslim. Now you say in that case is not allowed to take, because you are not sure it is slaughtered in Islamic way. Well, if a non-Muslim sell it and say it is halal meat, and you are sure he is not lying, you trust him, because sometimes for marketing they write, they put a paper and say this is halal meat, but that has no value. That is marketing. Everybody put a stamp halal and finish. About meat in Islam, there is a great importance, and we have to investigate. We have to make sure the meat is halal before we are allowed to eat. If we are in doubt the meat is halal, we are not allowed to eat that meat. You see, we have to make sure. Now, if we take it from a Muslim, he said no need to investigate, because we trust the Muslim. He is usually not cheating and selling halal meat. But if that Muslim, he has not slaughtered the animals himself, he took it from the market of non-Muslims. Now, or if I am buying it from a non-Muslim, so in these two cases, the meat is haram. But now if I take it from a Muslim, and that Muslim has purchased the meat from a non-Muslim, but he has made investigation that the non-Muslim should have some Muslim butchers who are slaughtering the animal in Islamic way. The Muslim I buy, though he purchased from non-Muslim, but he made sure that the non-Muslim is slaughtering an Islamic way. Here he said, well, it is okay to trust. I mean, suppose we got meat from Brazil, from New Zealand, from Australia, to different Muslim countries, naturally, those Muslims who import that meat, they are Muslim. But before them, we said it was in hand of non-Muslim. So if they are careless and they say, oh, it is halal meat, then you cannot trust them. But if they say, no, we are a big company and we are religious, we send our own butchers to slaughter the animals by hand and according to Islamic way with all the details, and these meat are imported especially for us, so it is though meat in a non-Muslim country, but it is a halal meat. So if there is possibility, or if he claims the Muslim, which he said, and naturally we trust him for that, then they said it is halal in that way. So here there is a difference. If the Muslim take it from non-Muslim without investigation, the meat is haram, not allowed. But if a Muslim shop who sell, if he take it from a non-Muslim, but he investigated that and he is sure it is halal meat, then it is okay to buy that meat and eat that meat. Another issue he mentioned, if you buy it from a Muslim market, if you are a Muslim country and there is a Muslim market and the people, everybody is selling meat. Now you are not sure 100% that each individual here in the market, they really slaughtered animal properly and exactly according to Islamic way. Still there is possibility, some of them they do not know the right way, or some of the animals have not been slaughtered in a right way. But because it is a Muslim market, and the Muslims who bring it, they say, well, it is halal, so we trust the Muslim market. They said the Muslim market by itself is a sign that the meat is halal. If you go to Muslim country and you go to Muslim market, you don't need to ask the person that, are you sure that those who slaughter the animal, they know how to do it properly? You say, no. If they are a Muslim, naturally they are supposed to know and they are sure about it, So that point, no need for more investigation. It is sufficient to go to Muslim market. So that is another issue here mentioned. And he mentioned about the praying with the hide. He said permissible. Well, if it is doubtful that whether it is tahar or najis, naturally the prayer, if you don't know that it is najis, so everything is regarded as tahar unless you are sure it is najis. Purifying things and eating meat are in a different way. There they say everything is purified unless you know it is najis. Here he said you are not allowed to eat unless you know it is halal meat. Not every meat is halal unless you know it is haram. No, not the case. They say you have to make sure the meat is halal, not a haram meat. So he said, though you are not allowed to use that hide for eating, but if there is possibility that it might be tahar, you take it as tahar. So to pray with it as tahar is okay. Yeah, so these are, I think, all the possibilities which have been mentioned in this issue has been covered. I think sufficient today, and inshallah for next session we'll discuss about issue 97, about the blood. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa alihi at-tahirin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.